Today I answer the questions of people who ask me, I want to build a simple house for starting my business. This is the house for you to start with, especially for those who want to start doing layer chicken farming business. I want to take you through a detailed way of constructing this simple house. It is cheap and affordable and very quality. The video is quite long because you always ask me questions, and in this video I want to answer all your questions, and therefore the video is divided into 4 parts. This is part 1, then I'll have part 2 and part 3 because I want you to see each and every step. Okay, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, kindly hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button, and I shall send you a notification every time I upload a new video. Before you do construction of any house, you have to have in mind the required spacing of the birds. For example, in our case, we want to build a house that will host birds in depleter system. Depleter for layers is 1 meter square equals to 10 birds. And therefore, this house, because we target to host at most 1,500 birds, we need a spacing of 1,500 meters squared, okay? And therefore, our house is going to measure 10 meters by 15 meters. So while doing the measurements, ensure that you are very accurate before starting construction of the house, or rather leveling of the ground. Make sure that it is a clear rectangle. Go ahead and do the holes. Do the holes at least half a meter deep. And in our case, because we are using pillars that are 3 by 2 inches, or rather timber that is 3 by 2 inches for pillars, ensure that the interpillar spacing is at most 1 meter. Don't go beyond an interpillar spacing or an intertimber spacing of above 1 meter. This makes the house weak, and therefore we want a strong house. Therefore, ensure that the distance between the pillars is at most 1 meter. Ensure that you check on the height of the house. This is a hot area, and therefore the height from the ground should be at least 3 meters for enhancing a cool environment for the chicken. Okay? Ensure that the corners, or rather the pillars at the corners, give you a right angle. The pillars should be, you should do the angles very accurately. This is to enhance a straight and strong house. And if the corners are not straight, it will indirectly or directly affect the roofing. After erecting the pillars on one side, ignore the other sides. That's, you have the 4 corners, but then erect pillars on one side. Then do the skirting. Do the middle skirt, or rather the middle tier of timber. This helps you in holding the pillars together so that in the end you will use it as a ladder to go high and do more lines or tiers of timber that will be used to attach the iron sheet. Ensure that the joints between the tiers, or rather the timber, is very firm and strong. Use overlapping joints and don't use interlocking joints. Unless you have timber that is long enough for the required length. For example, you can see we want to join this skirt, and therefore for it to be strong, the joint has to be overlapping. In every step you take, ensure that you do the correct and accurate measurement. Okay, this is to give you a straight and even housing that is even beautiful in the eyes. For a house as such, you have to do at least 6 lines or tiers holding the pillars from the ground up to the roof, the one that will assume the role of a lintel. Okay, this is because we are using timber that is 3 by 2 inches, and therefore they cannot perform the same function as a pole that has a diameter of at least, let me say 3 centimeters, not 3 centimeters, let me say 5 centimeters. And therefore we have to build a house that is firm and strong enough to resist the wind, and also when you're climbing it, ensure that it is safer for you, it is strong to hold the weight of the fundis or the carpenters. So After completing one line, then construct the width of the house, okay? This is just to ensure that you first start constructing the house by having a 90-degree wall. So this 90-degree wall is the one that will guide us to build the other side. Then the house can be an even rectangle with 4 90 degrees corners. Then the roof will be in line, okay? So ensure that you construct a house or pillars that the people working on it can comfortably climb it and build it, and it can't break down. If a house cannot hold the weight of those building it, then it is even risky for the chicken in it, simply because it might not hold the weight of the roof. All right. Now, for the width, or rather the width side, we don't go for 6 tiers, or rather 6 lines of timber. This is because on this side we shall not have the grills, and therefore we shall just have the iron sheet running from the ground up to the top side. Like I mentioned before, in every step you do or you take, ensure that you take the correct and accurate measurements. In our case, because we've built the other half of the walls, we then want to erect the remaining half, and therefore we have to keep measuring and confirming and ensure that this wall is directly proportional to the other wall, okay? This is also just to maintain the strength again of the house. Use fine threads, or rather use silk threads or nylon threads to help you in straightening the walls. So tie a thread, or rather a nylon thread, at the far corner, then pull it to the other corner of the pillar that you had erected before. So this thread is going to guide you in erecting the remaining pillars. So a pillar should not go beyond the thread, but it should touch the thread and stay there. Ensure that you have a thread below right some few centimeters, like 30 centimeters above the ground, and another thread exactly half from the ground going up. So the 2 threads will help you or guide you in aligning the pillars, like you can see now, okay? And if your holes were done evenly, 50 centimeters all of them, then it becomes quite easy for you to do the leveling of the roof. We use the threads because you understand that when you're digging the holes, it is easier to control the depth of the holes, but it is not easy to control the width of the holes, all right? And because, again, the pillars we are using are even but small, and therefore the rope will help us in aligning. Do not just assume that this is a chicken house and therefore just have to build anything. Build something decent for your eyes and decent also for your chicken. So like I said before, again, you start with the central tier again, so that it can be held firmly and give you again the straightness of the wall. In our case, you can see now we have done the central tier, and when you go to the lower tier or the first tier, then now you can do the other tiers, like you go to the center and the one right above. This will help you also in just making the structure firm, and the people working on it can easily go around it as a safety precaution, and also just for easing your work and making your work quite decent and beautiful. Now, while joining the timber, ensure that the tiers timber is, if you're using the pillars timber for 3-2, then the tiers timber has to go a little bit down, and you have to use timber measuring 2-2. All right. When I refer to timber, I'll be using inches. All right. So for example, if I say 2-2, I simply mean 2 inches by 2 inches. All right. While joining the timber, or rather the tiers to the pillars, do not use 2 nails. Use a 5-inch nail and only 1 nail put at the center. This will help in avoiding splitting of the tier, okay? And if you have to use 2 nails, then you have to use smaller nails. You'll move from 5 inches and go to 4 inches. All right. Like you can see, we'll join this timber from outside and then we shall reinforce it again from inside. All right. Then every time you do the construction, because the pillars are quite weak and we want to maintain the 90 degrees corners, always support the pillars from inside and outside. All right. You can put supports that are artificial like this one, and then when the structure gets to the roof or the lintel, the trusses will help bring them together and even give you firmer support. Then you can remove the artificial pillars. Okay. So that is how simple or complicated it is. Okay. Just ensuring that all steps you take, you keep measuring. Like you can see now, at least after every 4 pillars, we put an artificial support, all right, just to maintain the house as it is and as you can see it in the video, all right, just to maintain that firmness. So always try to ensure that when you do the side tiers, they are not so much wide apart. Like in our case, the lower tier has an inter-tier distance of 75 centimeters, all right? Bearing in mind that the skirt of the house is going to be meter, and therefore that is 100 centimeters. We have an allowance of 25, okay? Now we have done all the walls, the sides, that is the width and the length. We have acquired an even rectangular plot or block. We then now move into reinforcing the walls on both ends. Then we shall go into the final stage of doing the walls, that is confirming their angles if they are in check. Kindly watch part 2 as that is the continuation of this video.